All right, so the William Shakespeare once said, and I'm paraphrasing, that the world is a stage and we're all just players in it. We all have our exits and we all have our entrances, and all of us in our time on this earth are going to play more than one role. We're going to have more than one hat that we wear. And in the stage that is the NBA, nobody wears more hats than LeBron James. LeBron James, the player, LeBron James, the coach. We've all heard the jokes, Le GM, LeBron James as the GM. And LeBron James, through Rich Paul, his close friend and collaborator, LeBron James gets to play the role of the agent. We've seen LeBron James play the agent and get his guys paid, whether it be J.R. Smith, Tristan Thompson, Contavious Caldwell Pope, KCP. We've seen him be the GM and trade a whole team mid-season from the Cleveland Cavaliers, trade guys with notoriety, name recognition players in return for role players that could fit into the LeBron James system a little bit better. We've seen LeBron play the role of the coach everywhere he goes, besides when he was in Miami and he was under Spoelstra, and besides when he had David Blatt in Cleveland when he first came back. Every time LeBron James has a coach, it's a guy who he can undermine, a guy who he can basically, coach calls the play in the huddle, and LeBron James comes on the court and says, all right, this is what we're really going to do. LeBron James comes in and he just pretty much controls the game plan and what the team is going to do on the offensive end because the ball is going to work through his hands. And on the defensive end, he's going to tell whoever the other good perimeter defenders are on the team, hey, you guard him, and I'm going to guard this guy over here who's not really a threat. That way I can play free safety, and I'm smart enough and I have the IQ that I know when you guys get beat, I can come with help. But I just don't have the stamina or the care or the willingness to actually guard a real offensive threat. So when we play the Warriors, I'm going to guard Draymond Green. Or when we play the Mavericks, I'm not going to guard Luka. I'm going to guard Finney Smith or Reggie Bullock or somebody like that. That's what LeBron James has done. So LeBron James plays many different hats. He has many different roles in the NBA. And LeBron James has always been passive aggressive. He gets his message out through little things, whether it be Twitter, whether it be leaking information to these guys on these mainstream platforms. We've seen it before. LeBron James tweeting at Kevin Love, subtweeting Kevin Love, saying, if you don't want to, guys need to focus on fitting in instead of fitting out. Or he'll make, remarks that the Cleveland Cavaliers need to pick up a playmaker. We need a playmaker when they have Kyrie Irving. And Kyrie and LeBron both knew that he was referring to the Cavs trading for Chris Paul. He wanted Chris Paul instead of Kyrie Irving. And Kyrie knew that, and that was a part of Kyrie's decision to leave, was because LeBron was shopping Kyrie, and Kyrie didn't appreciate that. So we've seen LeBron do that before. We've seen LeBron give information to guys like Nick Wright, Colin Cowherd, who I'm about to play a segment of his. We've seen LeBron and Shannon Sharp be close collaborators. Shannon Sharp, man, he's in love with LeBron James. We know LeBron gives him information. Nick Wright, Chris Broussard. We've seen LeBron get guys like Brian Windhorst and use them and toss them. I mean, LeBron trusts you as far as he can throw you. So LeBron uses the media to get out information. He uses social media to get out information. And that's what he's done here, is he's made little passive-aggressive comments in press conferences, in social media, amongst his guys, and things have gotten around. And Bill Oram, he follows the Lakers. He writes for The Athletic. He's just a writer. He's just a messenger. And LeBron's going to shoot the messenger. LeBron's going to tear the messenger down. But it's a passive-aggressive way. It's the style that LeBron James has always utilized, where he gets his message across, but he still gets to look like the company guy. He still gets to look like the good guy. But Bill Oram has real sources on this article that he wrote. He has real sources, and he picked up on all the passive-aggressive shit that LeBron was saying publicly that, quite frankly, we all picked up on. So he pieced it all together, and he wrote an article that was pretty on point. And LeBron tore it down and said Bill didn't know what he was talking about. And that's just LeBron shooting the messenger so that way he can look good but get his message across. So Colin has Bill Oram on the show. I'm going to play the segment. I'll let him talk and I'll chime in.
Lakers mess on full display last night. Little tire fire on the interstate last night. Just doesn't work. little bit of a raising the white flag at the trade deadline, perhaps. AD's not healthy. Westbrook now is no longer even productive.
Yeah, and that's such a big surprise. The Lakers don't work. That's not a surprise to anybody. Anthony Davis's body is breaking down. That's not a surprise to anybody. Russell Westbrook doesn't fit. Not a surprise to anybody.
LeBron is playing pretty well. Though last night, I'm not sure his health. He didn't quite look springy.
It's crazy. LeBron gets every excuse in the book. Now it's his health. Is LeBron really playing well? Like, yeah, LeBron's putting up good numbers, but is LeBron playing defense? Is LeBron keeping them in games? Is LeBron winning games? Is he doing what he has to do to succeed? I don't know. I mean, Steph Curry last season, we saw Steph Curry be the best player in the NBA. He didn't win the MVP, but he was arguably the best player in the NBA. In my opinion, he was the best player in the NBA. And we saw Steph Curry have a bunch of G Leaguers on his team. We saw him with Damian Lee. We saw him with JTA. We saw him with, guys who are bottom of the bench guys who are, role players at best, mediocre NBA players, mediocre talent. And he took them, and he was the 8th seed. He got knocked out by the Memphis Grizzlies in the play-in. He almost beat the Lakers in the play-in. I believe he went to overtime with the Grizzlies in that game that he lost versus them. So, he had a couple tight battles, but that team, if there was no play-in tournament, the Warriors would have been in the playoffs last year, and that was Steph Curry carrying that team. So, in comparison to that, are the Lakers even going to make the playoffs? Is LeBron going to be able to carry these guys the way that Steph did last year, to even being like an 8th seed or having some relevancy or, competing in the play-in tournament? I don't know. It doesn't appear to be so. It appears that LeBron isn't doing his part in comparison to guys like Stephen Curry or even like a Russell Westbrook when he was in his prime and he was carrying OKC when he was putting up triple-doubles and shit like that. Like, I don't know, LeBron James, he's not winning games, so I can't say that he's having a good season.
Bill Oram covers the Lakers for The Athletic. He's covered them for a long time, almost a decade. And he wrote an article near the trade deadline, fully sourced, that LeBron did not like. And LeBron sent a tweet out either last night or this morning referencing Bill and LeBron actually had a conversation. And, LeBron's always been pretty good with the media. Like, he talks after games.
Yeah, he talks to you. He uses you. He uses a lot of guys. And to Colin Cowherd's credit, like, Cowherd isn't a guy who just, like, sucks LeBron and is always just pro LeBron about everything. But there's been times he's been in, collaboration. I'm saying collaboration is a nice way, but there's been times that he's collaborated with LeBron to get what he wants out of things, and so LeBron could get his message across. But LeBron uses these other guys like Chris Broussard or Nick Wright or Shannon Sharp.
One of these guys that LeBron doesn't hide. I mean, to his credit, not all stars are great post-game and pre-game, and some can be petty. LeBron's always been pretty good with the media. So here's the tweet. Bill Oram at The Athletic. So LeBron said, listen, I had a candid conversation after the game. I know he has a job to do. I know that what he wrote wasn't truthful because it never came from me, but I get it. Sources run this game.
It wasn't truthful because it never came from you. Well, he wrote his article through the things that you said. He wrote his article based on the things that you said publicly and based on sources that are around you and the team. So, basically you're calling everybody a liar, Mr. James. And based on the things that you're saying publicly, when you say, oh, this GM is really good and that GM is really good, nobody really says that. Like, nobody really says that. And when there's already rumors that you and Rob aren't really seeing eye to eye, it kind of does appear to be a shot at your GM. I mean, is that far-fetched? Is that really a reach for somebody to assume that? Is it really a reach when you say that you want to play with your son, that you're basically inviting any team that's willing to do it to the LeBron James experience? Like, LeBron is telling any team in the NBA, hey, draft my son and you get me and what comes with me, which means sold out seats and all the media attention that comes with LeBron James being on your team and, getting to say that you have a guy who is arguably the GOAT. He's not arguably the GOAT, but that's what people say. Arguably the GOAT on your franchise, blah, blah, blah. And, just take my son and you get this. So LeBron was shooting a lot of stuff out. And I don't think it's really fair for him to say that it wasn't truthful just because LeBron didn't say that directly to Bill, but LeBron knows what it is. And when he says Laker Nation, let him be because he ain't a bad guy, dude, Laker Nation doesn't ride for you. You got your one championship in the bubble. Laker Nation wasn't there to see it. They weren't there to experience it. Everybody knows that championship run was a little fugazi. You guys got a lot of time to rest up. Helped AD a lot. As you can see, when AD doesn't get those extra months to heal up and rest, that he can't really play in a full NBA season. So Laker Nation ain't riding for you, dude. It's not like you're Kobe or Magic or Shaq where they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna get him. Like they don't really like Laker Nation don't really give a fuck about what LeBron's talking about.
Nevertheless, Laker Nation, let him be because he ain't a bad guy. All right, so I'm not going to ask you specific details of the conversation, but let's take our audience back and contextualize it. He was upset because of an article written that was fully sourced. Give our audience a sense of what that article entailed that LeBron was not happy about.
Well, LeBron hasn't expressed to me specifically what he was upset about or what he's refuting, but
that's how you know LeBron's just all cap. Like LeBron's just mad to be mad. LeBron's mad because he knows that he got to get up there and refute those things just so he can look like the company guy, so everything can look smooth. But if he's not listing anything specific that he didn't like about the article, it's because he knows this guy is spitting facts.
I think the tone of the coverage, and not just from me, not just from the Athletic, really since his comments over the All-Star break, have sort of interpreted what he said about potentially returning to Cleveland, leaving that door open, wanting to play with Bronny, complimenting various executives, other than Lakers GM Rob Pelinka, as him trying to exert some leverage on the Lakers organization after they didn't make a deal at the trade deadline, after the roster that's been put together around him, obviously not without his influence, hasn't worked.
Exactly. Not without his influence. LeBron James shaped that roster. LeBron James plays the GM role. LeBron James, there might have been guys like a Caruso who he didn't want to leave, and the Lakers were just not willing to go into the luxury tax for him. But LeBron built this roster up more or less. And LeBron James, since LeBron James has came back to Cleveland, he didn't have this type of pull in Miami, but since he has came back to Cleveland, he has pretty much been the GM of every team every single season. I mean, not pretty much. He has been the GM on every team every single season since he came back to Cleveland that second go-around. And when he talked about going back to Cleveland or leaving it open as a possibility, I've heard like Colin and several other guys mention this. The Cavs might not take him back again. Like, why would they take him back when they have Garland, LeVert now, Jarrett Allen, Mobley? Mobley's a beast. Like, they have a lot going on in Cleveland. Why would they tie themselves up to the LeBron experience just to be, left for dead again when LeBron retires? And LeBron might not even be in a position to get them a championship anymore.
So I think in general, LeBron is pushing back on the idea that his comments were anything other than at face value. Hey, I do like Kobe Altman. I do like Sam Presti. That doesn't mean I'm not down with Rob Pelinka right now. Me wanting to potentially leave the door open to Cleveland doesn't mean I'm not committed to the Lakers. And what that asks us to do as, critically thinking, members of the media, Lakers fans, people who've followed LeBron James for these last 19 years, is to trust that he's not trying to move pieces behind the scenes, that this isn't calculated.
Which is exactly what it is.
We know LeBron, who is, a basketball genius, but also a very, very savvy operator in other ways.
Shrewd operator.
In terms of manipulating things in his favor, is not trying to get a certain message across. And I think really what you've seen over the last 10 days or so is LeBron realizing that, this has gotten a little more out of hand than he expected. In this media environment, there was a lot more pushback on some of his comments and interpretation to some of his comments than there might have been when he was in Cleveland and things were going kind of sideways. We're just in a different media landscape now, and I believe that he felt it was important to sort of lower the temperature because you did see where Rich Paul needed to meet with Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka to sort of re-establish that connection, to say LeBron's committed to the Lakers. He's not looking to make a change with the front office. Just lower the temperature after the way his comments sort of lit the NBA world on fire over All-Star Weekend. So that's sort of where we are. But what I've written is really just the fact that LeBron, to me, over All-Star break, really sent a message to the Lakers that his presence isn't guaranteed. That there can be an expiration date to this Lakers adventure if.
And the Lakers let him know, dude, you only won one championship for us. We have a bunch of legends that love playing in LA. There's going to be a lot of guys who come after you who are always going to want to play in LA. So you ain't finna push us around like we're Cleveland. You don't get that type of pull with us. You know what I'm saying? And he's let them know that, hey, he's going to try to push it all he can. And they've let him know, hey, we ain't going for it. Like, this is Laker Nation and we ain't going for it.
He doesn't feel like he's being taken care of. And, it makes sense that he would then ease that pressure once he feels like that message has been received.
Listen, it's pretty well understood in NBA circles. They had a deal for Buddy Hield. LeBron wanted Westbrook. He's not an off-ball player. It's been a disaster. Now he's yapping at fans. He's ripped.
538, the analytical site, 538. They've stated that if Buddy Hield played every minute, through their calculations, they stated that Buddy Hield, if he played every minute that Russell Westbrook played this season, if you took Westbrook out and you had Buddy Hield playing those minutes, the Lakers would be approximately 10 games better. That was a stat. That was something that I had seen about a week ago. Now, that's very interesting. It's hard to really quantify that. It's impossible to quantify that, really, because a matchup where Westbrook was defending a guy better than Hield would, it's just too much to factor. The chemistry, basketball is a chemistry game. But I do believe that they would be better. And for the analytics to show that they would be about 10 games better, that's insane. The analytics are saying they would have been much, much better with Buddy Hield. So LeBron James made a mistake right there. And that's the GM messing up.
People after the games. It's a mess. Whatever. So ideally, you'd like to move off Westbrook. I've said before,
And LeBron knows he messed up. LeBron's smart enough that after game 1 against the Warriors, he was like, this ain't really a good fit, LeBron's smart. He picked up on it. Maybe, he was feeling himself a little bit too much and thought that he could be the guy to get Westbrook to adjust his game and fit into the scheme. But LeBron James, very early on, if it wasn't game 1 against the Warriors, it was very soon after where he was like, this isn't going to work. Now, the problem that LeBron has with the Lakers front office is they're not letting him undo his mistake. They're like, hey, you asked for Westbrook, so we brought you Westbrook. Now you got to sit in it. We're not about to trade our draft picks and put ourselves through hell like the Cavs or like other franchises or, other franchises might be willing to put themselves through hell to get LeBron James or deal with the LeBron James experience. But we're not going to do that. We're keeping our draft picks. We're keeping our future. We're going to make sure that we're good. When you leave, we can get another star and we can keep on going. And LeBron basically wants to milk them dry so he can win now. And the Lakers are like, no, you asked for this, so you gotta lay in it.
You told me the future of the Lakers was LeBron, Malik Monk. I'd probably put Reeves, Avery Bradley. I'm not an AD guy. I understand I'm in the minority. Everybody loves him. I would have moved off him last year. But whatever. I guess my takeaway, Bill, is how do you solve stuff? I don't care about finger pointing. Like, how do you solve stuff? I do think they've waved a white flag for this year. I just think they're not going to win.
It doesn't look like you can solve it, to be honest. They're the Lakers, so they can pull something out their ass, but it doesn't look like they can solve it.
So let's move on. Do you think Westbrook's the easiest player to move, but you'd have to inherit some bad contracts to give up him? I mean, what's the solution in your? Is there one?
I think there has to be one, right? There has to be a move made with Westbrook, barring something just unimaginable.
Right.
Him, suddenly being very proactive and saying he's willing to come off the bench, or just a complete, reversal in kind of the way.
Russell Westbrook will never say that he's willing to come off of the bench. I was saying from the very beginning that they needed to trade Westbrook, and guys were telling me, oh, Westbrook just has to come off the bench, or Westbrook has to be willing to downsize his role. He's never going to do that.
He views himself, just because, like you said, this has not worked. I've written previously that trading for Russell Westbrook is going to go down as one of the worst management decisions in the history of the modern history of the NBA.
Yeah, it's the worst one that I can think of.
Especially when you consider where the Lakers were and where they should be with LeBron and Anthony Davis, and then you bring in Russell Westbrook, which has just been a total disaster. You're going to have 2 draft picks this summer, 2 first-round draft picks for 2027 and 2029. So, far off, right? But you can use those to incentivize, getting getting someone else to take the last year of Russ's $48 million contract, and you're going to take back somebody else's money, but that might at least be players who fit a little bit better alongside LeBron, guys who are comfortable playing more of a role alongside LeBron and Anthony Davis. And then you're going to be in the same position where you are building it out with minimum contracts again. I mean, you mentioned Malik Monk. I don't see a scenario where the Lakers can afford Malik Monk. He's been too good.
Yeah.
So he's going to get a payday from someone else. All the Lakers are going to have is that taxpayer mid-level exception, which is around $5 million. That's a massive underpay for Malik Monk. And I don't think Malik Monk, who should be, basically on his rookie extension at this point, if things had gone better in Charlotte, is going to be looking to give anybody a hometown discount. So to me, Malik Monk, has been able to resurrect his career with the Lakers, but I don't see him sticking around. So now really the Lakers.
Yeah, Malik Monk is the only guy who got anything positive out of this season for the Lakers. He's the only guy in Los Angeles who came up this year.
Lakers are going to rearrange the big pieces again, right? They're going to try to find a way to move off of Westbrook. I don't see anything changing with LeBron or Anthony Davis, just because, in part, Anthony Davis has been hurt so much.
Yeah.
You're going to get not the same value you would have if you had been looking to trade him a year ago, which they absolutely were not. But now the first 2 years of that 5-year max extension have basically been completely derailed by injuries.
Yeah.
You've got 3 years left on that contract and one more year of injuries, and then now a majority of that contract has been wasted. So, that's really unfortunate for a player who is, obviously as skilled and supremely talented as Anthony Davis is, but hasn't been able to be on the court the last 2 years for the Lakers. So that's really unfortunate. But you're invested in this, at least this duo. Anthony Davis and LeBron James still represent your best path to being a contender. And so I think that they're going to have to, really try to, go at it again and learn from the lessons of this season. And what's been interesting about the Lakers and Rob Pelinka, as long as they've had LeBron James, has been these annual reversals of strategy. The first year they thought that they could surround LeBron James with ball handlers. That didn't work.
Yep.
So then they go and get shooters and defenders, and that does work. But then they outsmart themselves and think, well, we don't need JaVale McGee. We need Marc Gasol.
Yeah, that was when they blew it. When they let JaVale McGee go, when they let Dwight Howard go, and they replaced him with Marc Gasol, that was a major, major mistake. That was a major mistake.
Montrezl Harrell. We don't need Danny Green. We need Dennis Schroeder. And so you take the one time it actually worked, you still completely overhauled that roster. And then last year, you said, hey, we had too many role players. We didn't have enough. We didn't have enough star power, enough leadership, enough tentpole talent.
Well, with the role players, when you had Anthony Davis healthy as a star, and you had Caruso playing good defense, you had KCP making shots and playing defense. That was a good little core to have on the court. The problem was LeBron James that season wasn't that great. LeBron James was not very good in that playoff series against the Phoenix Suns. LeBron James was not very good. If they had won that series, it was going to be because of Anthony Davis. It was going to be because Chris Paul was choking a little bit in that series, and it was going to be because Anthony Davis was dominant. When Anthony Davis didn't play in Game 5 and Game 6, the Lakers got dog-walked. The only games that the Lakers won were when Anthony Davis played. I believe the Lakers were winning by like 13 at halftime or early in the third when Anthony Davis got hurt in like Game 4, and the Suns came back and won that one. So, the Lakers didn't stand a chance anytime that Anthony Davis wasn't in the game. LeBron James was not a difference maker for them.
And so then you go out and get Russell Westbrook, who makes, I hate piling on with Russell Westbrook because I still think he's one of the best basketball players in the world, but is not aging as gracefully as some other people like LeBron James, and is a terrible fit here, has made the Lakers demonstrably worse. So the Lakers haven't had an identity around LeBron James.
Westbrook gets the worst of both worlds because Westbrook already gets shit on for being Westbrook, and then he gets shit on because he's LeBron's scapegoat. He's the guy who everyone points the blame to, because there's always a guy on LeBron's team who people point the blame to. So now Westbrook gets the worst of both worlds. He's Westbrook on one end, and he's LeBron's scapegoat on the other end. So he just can't win. LA's his hometown. He's getting booed in it. I feel bad for him every single day when I watch sports segments. There's always some outlet, there's always some platform that's just shitting on Westbrook completely. I feel bad for him. The dude plays hard. If you could get Westbrook to New York or something, pair him up with R.J. Barrett, and if they can end up getting Zion Williamson, you got two leapers with R.J. Barrett. They're not going to win shit, but they'd be interesting. They'd be fun. They'd be an entertaining watch. You know, they'd be like a 6-7 seed or some shit. That's the best Westbrook's going to do.
James, over these 4 years, a consistent identity, and I see them probably, changing course again this summer and having an overreaction to this year, as opposed to having a roadmap, over these 4 years to be kind of a consistent team.
Yeah, well, the NBA, you got to have matching contracts. So if you get rid of Westbrook, some people have suggested the Knicks. You take Evan Fournier, you take a couple of Knicks players. Fournier can shoot a little bit. That I like.
Yeah, but what's the big difference between Fournier and Malik Monk? I mean, you lose Malik Monk, you trade Westbrook for Fournier. You get addition by subtraction by getting rid of Westbrook. And with Fournier, you can make up for that Malik Monk production, but it doesn't put you over the top. It's not going to make the Lakers anything serious.
Okay, Bill Oram, The Athletic. Follow, read him. He's got up-to-date stuff and occasionally makes stars uncomfortable, which is always a good sign of a journalist. Bill, thanks again.
Thanks, Colin.
All right, little update on where they are right now. He made a really good point. They just, every year it's a different team. They just keep kind of grasping, and it worked.
Yeah, that's the LeGM effect. So LeBron James wears many different hats. He went public trying to shoot the messenger down, tried to send Laker Nation at the guy, then tried to retract Laker Nation away from the guy. Laker Nation wasn't going to do shit because Laker Nation ain't with you, LeBron. LeBron knows that too. But we'll see. The Lakers are going to make a lot of moves in the offseason. LeBron's going to put on those hats. He's going to do everything that he can to give himself the best team to win, as he should. I don't fault him for this. I'm just saying let's call it for what it is. So we'll see what goes on. Thanks for watching. Peace.